JJ Kinahan, last year was a great year for stocks, up around 13% in the S&P with dividends. This year so far, all we've gotten is a whole lot of volatility.
Right.
Will this be the theme in 2015?
I think it will be, Greg. I think you'll see more, and let's face it, more traditional volatility, particularly over the last 10 years, is near a 20 level on the VIX. You know, what we've seen in the June quarter at 12 and 3/4, the September quarter, we saw near a 13. I think we're going to continue to see these 18 to 20 volatilities, which seem really high compared to what we've seen recently. But again, from a traditional point of view, that's what we've seen in the marketplace.
And a lot of today's bumpiness is due to Tiffany disappointing investors. Let's talk about the retail sector here. Will Tiffany's failure to meet market expectations mean some bad news? Because we're going to start hearing from the rest of the retailers in earnings season.
Well, I think it may be a little bit of a shift. As you and I know, the high end, the Tiffany's, the Coaches, whatever, they've hung in there very well through this whole financial crisis. This may be the first time that the lower end enjoys the benefit. Remember, the one good thing about the oil falling so quickly is it meant more money in people's pockets because of gasoline. That makes a lot bigger difference on somebody who's going to Walmart to buy milk or whatever than it does to somebody who's going out to buy a diamond ring.
Let's talk about oil. Clearly, the oil companies have come down. Is now the time to start bottom fishing, or is there more to go on the downside?
Well, I will say this. One of the problems I see for many people as they trade oil is this. If you're not used to trading commodities, an old commodity trader once said to me that commodity moves are bigger and more violent than you think they can be. And so what we saw this morning in oil, with it going through that 48.13 level, which was a big area of support, and going down near 46, tells me that we can continue. I think anytime you're going to try and catch a falling knife, it's always difficult. What I would say to people, if you see an oil-related stock that you want to buy because you think it's a good price, you might want to get in, but I certainly wouldn't put all my eggs in that basket, and I wouldn't get in for the full amount I wanted to get into at this point. Let opportunity be your friend if we continue to go down.
What about biotech in 2015? It was great for biotech investors last year. I think the IBB was up over 30%. What about this year?
Well, you know, a lot of it was also driven, as we both know, through M&A activity. To continue at that pace seems difficult. Not that biotech necessarily will do bad, but I think to set your expectations on a record-setting year in M&A activity in that sector would be a little bit difficult to achieve.
And then finally, it's a young year so far, but financials have severely underperformed the S&P so far in 2015. Will this be a bad year for financials, the big banks?
Well, it's funny. You and I have talked about this before, how everybody always puts a death knell on financials, and yet they continue to perform no matter what seems to be the case. There is one thing in financials that makes me nervous, and that is, as we just talked about oil, for two reasons. Number one, they have a lot of their loans out to these oil services type companies, especially the bigger banks. The other thing is, if you look at the junk bond market, about 18% of the junk bonds that were issued last year went to oil services companies. Those big machines cost a lot of money to get oil out of the ground, et cetera. As we get to a lower oil price, if you're borrowing money in junk bonds already, you're probably not the most financially stable company in the world. That could start to affect those companies through defaults, et cetera. That could be a big problem for some of the banks.
All right, we'll watch in 2015. Thanks a lot, JJ.
Always a pleasure, Greg. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for watching The Street.